So the next ones, they decree that, right? They say, okay, Nero, you're a god. Caligula, you're a god. Caesar, you're a god, right? And they went with that, right? So this Constantine in his era, according to this timeline video, if you watch it on YouTube, they're showing animations, right? They're at the back of this Arch of Victory, or Triumph. He's supposedly put up a statue, a golden statue of him riding a chariot, making out that he was like Apollo, a god, but then he started to get an ego. He says, I'm more powerful than Apollo, I'm Apollo, and all this sort of crap, right? All this sort of stuff. So he was, pagan, really, right? Okay, so he wanted to destroy this apostolic church because they had these original texts, these sayings of Christ. Again, they had like probably perverted ones and stuff like that. Tiberius at the time, or prior to him, he started to believe because he heard Jesus stories, all that sort of stuff. So he started to believe it. So he was like going to embrace it, but the Roman Senate probably said, we discourage that sort of thing. No one can be, maybe it was declared by Constantine or one of those emperors, nobody can be rendered a deity or a god with a big G or little g until we approve of it. Okay, when we say, we believe that person is a god, big G or little g, right? So we'll put it out there that everyone has to worship them or honour them because they're a god. Okay? But not until then. So anyway, these, getting back to the gist of this, the disciples, where they congregate, say a house, a meeting place, it was destroyed along with Jerusalem. So they pick up these scrolls and they run across the land to safety, as Jews do with their scrolls. They probably get to that church, wherever it was, in the east somewhere, and they go, here you go, here's these scrolls, look after them. So they hide them and preserve them and keep them intact for 2,000 years. Even though their church in the 13th century was destroyed, these people ran with these texts, these manuscripts, original manuscripts, kept running, kept them safe, right? And then they'll be relatively safe, say in India for a while. Then Thomas supposedly gets martyred by zealous Brahmins and all this sort of stuff. Like today, you can't baptize people there in India because they won't allow it with this sort of stuff. There's these laws. Okay, you get in trouble. This is what happened to the Australian guy. What's that guy? Stephen. He's one of those brothers. His brother got in trouble for shooting somebody out in the middle of one of those Baldwins. He was in that movie about that Australian that they burnt him and his children in a van because he was baptizing people over there, right? So Thomas and that ended up going there and converting all these Indians. Then later, these Hindu Indians, right, to the Eastern religion. But eventually the Jesuits, Roman Catholics, came and said, right, you're heretics, that's not the religion, we want you to have this one, and they killed 15,000 people. That's the kind of thing they did, right? You're heretics, you're of the devil, because you've got that religion. And they killed 15,000 of them. Yeah, so these high priests of the Apostolic Church of the East hid these scriptures for over 2,000 years, as attested by the once patriarch of that church, the restored church, right? Not that original ancient one that was destroyed. He was the head patriarch of that church in 1957. So, because Constantine was trying to make his Roman empirical church the mother church, and everyone had to come underneath him, right? Under his subjection. So he'd go out there and invade them, and he'd say, right, convert or die. Yeah, what's your choice? Oh no, we're not giving up our belief. Okay, so he'd kill them, take their scripts, probably put them in the Roman, like a Vatican, whatever, a vault or whatever, or just totally burn them, destroy them, never to be seen, never to see daylight again. Yeah. So, in sum, we're basically asking if this Old Testament, these original ancient, very Old Testament manuscripts, are talking about Christ right through them, as Christ said, look, these texts, these scriptures, they talk about me from the very beginning up until the point where it's talking to those Pharisees, is right in front of them. He says, yeah, it talks all about me, right? And I was standing, that guy that's in the scriptures, he's standing right in front of you, and you're not believing him. Me, it's talking about me. You're not believing what I'm saying. Okay, and then obviously to the end of those New Testament manuscripts, from the Galilean Aramaic, etc., even the Koine Greek, it's speaking about Christ right to the very last verse, which would probably be Revelations 22:21 or something like that, or 21:22. Okay, where he says, peace be with you, I'll never leave you, all that sort of stuff, right? Amen. Okay, so it's speaking about the Christ from the very beginning, Genesis 1 to Revelations, the end of Revelations 22. If that's all true, then who can deny it? Okay, it's irrefutable, isn't it? Who can deny it? Would that be proof that the Christ actually existed? Okay, so in our notes here we asked, okay, this is talking about the translator Victor Alexander. Centuries later, okay, hang on, where are we? Yeah, Constantine wanted to establish his church as the mother church, and force all to come under his subjection, right? Under that church, all had to be part of that church. So invaded their regions and forced all by threat. Convert or die. Convert or be punished or be killed. Make you a choice. Okay. Centuries later, around 1997, a native-born Aramaic-speaking translator, filmmaker from Mesopotamia, he's a Mesopotamian history buff as well, Victor N. Alexander, was given a copy of the original ancient very old Testament, Ktav Ashurit, or Aramaic, in biblical form, in the sacred scribal language of God, the Lshana, Ateeqa, Supprayah, that he spoke to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and the men gathered in the desert region of Sumer or Shinar, building the Tower of Babel, spoke one to another, right? Until God multiplied their languages, then scattered them. Yeah, they're totally confused, they didn't know what each guy next to them was saying, because they suddenly had all these different languages they didn't understand, right? That's why it's called Babel. Yeah, Babel or Babel. And then he's translated the New Testament. At the time he was translating, when he first started, Victor Alexander, he was translating probably from the 1889 Umayyad version. That's where the American missionaries went into Umayyad, Iraq, etc., and tried to translate their beloved 1611 King James Version into the language, Syriac, but apparently there's no grammatical structure at that time, so they botched it, they messed it up, right? And maybe that's what he was translating from. So he meets this priest, this high priest from the Apostolic Church of theirs, who says, what are you doing? Basically he says, I'm translating this Eastern Persia, the Syriac, into English for my American friends and Christians, so they can better understand the scriptures, what the scriptures say in our language, right? So this priest just smiled and went away. And apparently he came back, because this Victor Alexander thought that this guy was happy with his work, right? This priest came back eventually. He said, what are you doing now? I've just finished Matthew, Mark, Luke. I'm going to work on John. And he said, what did you translate it from? He said, I translated from this Eastern Syriac. He said, why? She said, because isn't that the original? And she said, no, it's wrong. They don't use that, right? Maybe he was translating from the Western Persia. That's what he was referring to, but he's not actually detailing that, right? The Victor Alexander. It's the 1889 Umayyad botch up, right? So he says, well, it's actually wrong. We don't use that in the Apostolic Church. So he goes, oh my gosh, that means I'll have to do all my work all over again. So this high priest gives them the original manuscripts, OT, NT, in this Ktav Ashurit, this Galilean Aramaic, whatever. And he gets all depressed for a year because he just did Matthew, Mark, Luke, and whatever. And he worked so hard on it and just depressed him, because it's like, oh mate, I've been wasting my time. What I've been translating is wrong. It's not the original. Well, they didn't use it, whatever that high priest said, right? So after a year or so, he gets over it and he starts his work again. And that's when he did his translation project, apparently, around about 1997, 98. Put it up online, a website, va.com, and then about 215, 216, it got taken down for some unknown reason. But we came across it, really liked it, we came across it by accident, and then we basically have been making videos centered around that. What he's translated in his translation project, his explanations, the idioms explained, etc., etc., and we're bringing them to you. Okay, so this Victor E. Alexander, he translated all into the nearest English equivalent without the common translators known flaws, right? Prejudice, bias, adding or taking away from the originals. He created a website called va.com and proceeded to translate both the Old Testament and New Testament as a translation project. In 2016, his website was stopped, taken down by his host apparently, or his then son-in-law Don Trump. I'm not too sure on that. He hasn't come back to us and told us exactly what it was or who did it. We just got it from a guy called Bennett or other name, blog site, who tried to say that Victor E. Alexander's middle name was Isaac, but reading his website, etc., that's not. He said he's named after his grandfather, great-grandfather, who might have been a silent movie guy. You know, he was supposedly the first CIA director or something, and he retired, and then some other things that he supposedly said about the CIA, the Queen, and Dr. John Merrick, the Elephant Man's grandson, involved in certain evil projects, and there are reasons why these things happen. They were the cause of it, all this sort of stuff. But we haven't got him to verify that yet. He just didn't answer us on that. Maybe he doesn't really want to at the moment. Okay, so we also found another guy, Messianic Jew, Andrew Gabriel Roth, who's translated this supposedly the original Eastern Syriac Breetah from the same church, the Apostolic Church of the East, into English. But we found that maybe he's being Messianic Jew. He's trying to mix the Syriac with Americanized English translations, because he's still using, or he was for a period, using, is it Mark 15:34? Why have you forsaken me? Which is incorrect according to Victor E. Alexander's translation of that. It does not mean forsaken me. It's a second or third generation Arabic Greek translation, interpolation, and it's incorrect. It doesn't mean that, right? It doesn't mean forsake me. Okay, so we're a bit weary on that guy, and he's like translated from, checked it using the Kabbalist Codex and others. So again, we're asking, is all of this proof? The evidence that Jesus the Christ actually existed, i.e. these original ancient manuscripts. And people will still say, well, they said to us, oh, well, it's all good, but where are they? We want to see them before we believe it. That's how people are, right? So we suggest you go to that Church of the East, wherever it is located today, and you go there and you ask them, okay, can I look at these manuscripts, these original ancient ones that supposedly? They might say yes, they might say no. Go take an expert with you so they can verify, yeah, this is like thousands of years old or whatever. It's all true. Don't know about what was actually said, but yeah, it's very, very old. So yeah, it could possibly be original manuscripts, and it could be from those original disciples, right? What Jesus said, what he did, that they all wrote down, and therefore preserved for 2,000 years. Okay, so again, we're asking, is this proof? Is this the evidence that Jesus the Christ actually existed? Well, using logic and common sense, it tells us it is. But as many might say, may say that these people of the Apostolic Church may claim that it comes from the disciples, etc., etc., but they could be lying through their teeth. But then you have the evidence of the patriarch, once head patriarch of that church in 1957, Mar Isai Shamun, who said that the day it was given by the blessed hands of Thomas to those high priests of that church, it has remained the same, latent. It's never been tampered with, possibly never translated into a foreign language, but we think maybe Koine Greek. They had some African churches, branch offs of this apostolic church or whatever, so maybe they used translated into Koine Greek or Ethiopic or something like that, right? Especially for them. They had no reason to actually translate it into any other foreign language, because even though their old language is dead, not many people speak that original long dead language. So there's still some, but they're really old and they don't know English, so they can't translate it. We will tell you in English what it's saying, right? Because they don't speak it. It's not their second language. Okay. They use their liturgy to read it, probably using a modern vernacular like the Syriac, mixed with a bit of Arabic now and again. That's what we've been told by people that were of that church. They're from Syria. And they say, yeah, this guy, Victor and Alexander, whatever you're telling us, because they're having a protest in our main city about Al-Qaeda and ISIS then attacking their cities in Syria and kicking them out. Okay? We watched that video footage, news footage, and there's a guy there with a watch all covered up, his face was covered up and all that, and he was saying, get out, get out, get out. If Jesus and all this horrible stuff about him, right? And we thought, that's not Muslims, that's somebody else, because apparently they respect him as not as the Son of God or God or the Messiah or whatever, but as a prophet along the same lines as Muhammad. So they apparently have that respect there, unless they're totally lying. So we were thinking, that's not, those guys aren't ISIS, they're somebody else, maybe mercenaries or something like that, or Mossad or something, even CIA, pretending to be these Al-Qaeda, ISIS. We're not sure that we could prove it. But, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to see if this is actually proof, see if you would agree that this is evidence that the Christ actually existed. Through these original ancient, very old manuscripts, the Old Testament, Ktav Ashurit, and also the Galilean Aramaic New Testament manuscripts, hidden, therefore preserved for over 2,000 years by that Church of the East. But to many, it's still not proof, because they're naysayers, that's the way they want it to be, whatever, until they see it with their own eyes. Some people have said, well, yeah, you're saying all this, but where's the proof? We haven't seen it, where can we see it? That's what we suggest. Go to the Apostolic Church in the East, find it, and go there and ask them if they can show you it. Take an expert along. Look at those original ancient, very old manuscripts that they supposedly have, as attested by that former patriarch Mark Esai Shimon in 1957, later assassinated on his doorstep by a Kurd in 1975, something like that. And ask them if they can show you those original ancient, very old manuscripts. Okay? Take an expert along to verify it as extremely very old. Okay, so we are putting our trust in those 12 disciples, the original disciples of Jesus the Christ, or Yeshua Mashiach, who spend every day with him, i.e. 24/7, 365, of his 3-year ministry, who he and all that he did, right? What they were testifying about. Yeah, we saw it all, we wrote it down, we know what he said, we heard what he said, we are witnesses or testators or testifiers, we're writing it down. Other people say, oh, you might be liars, right? You're lying. And they say, well, why would we lie? God forbid, why would we be liars? Because in our faith, our belief, our testimony, etc. would be totally invalid, wouldn't it? And what man dies for something he doesn't believe in? Okay? So they went to their death believing. Peter even asked, apparently, I'll be upside down because I'm not worthy to die upright like the Christ, and all that sort of stuff. They went through these horrific deaths believing, this revelation of the Christ, what these disciples had told them, etc., etc. They were persecuted. They lost their lives because of their faith, their belief, as testators testifiers or witnesses. And others that weren't around the Christ, they heard from those disciples, Peter, etc., etc., like Luke and that, came across them, and they told them of the revelations of Christ, the good news, etc., what they saw, what they heard the Christ say, and so forth, basically, i.e. the Gospels. And then Paul is basically the same. He's supposed he had his own vision. And today, these rabbis, etc., are calling him a liar. But again, why would he lie? He even says it in the scriptures, you know. They're trying to find the flaws, because this, apparently, a certain rabbi can't stand the New Testament Gospels, right? That's why he's doing it. And he can't get his head around the Eastern Peshitta, Syriac Peshitta. He just can't do it, right? Because this is coming from another person who has 2 doctorates in the Aramaic, probably the modern vernacular, and also the Hebrew, probably Israeli Hebrew. It's not the original ancient, very old, long dead, no longer used, Ktav Ashurit or Hebrew. Even though they may say, yeah, I know that. They actually don't. They're saying, oh, it's coming from the original. I know the original. They don't, because it's long dead. Yeah, they're trying to fool you. Yeah, even these people from the Bible societies within your modern day Bibles, and they say, oh, we got these all from the original Aramaic. Well then, or the Greek or the Hebrew or whatever. If they did, they would be following the same method that this guy used. Okay? Using a modern vernacular, the root words, which are very similar to those old long dead words, that old long dead text, script, language, whatever, to translate those old manuscripts. They would be using a method like that. So if you have an archaeologist or expert, scholar, theologian, etc., goes and looks at these old scrolls, and they say, well, we use this system using the modern vernacular root words to translate those old words, then yeah, I'd go and believe them, right? I'd believe them. But anyone else that just says, oh, it's the original, we've got the original, and they can't verify it, they won't provide a source or a link to back it up, well, they're just hearsay, aren't they? Just talking a whole lot of fluff. Okay? So, we could play a little bit more, but I think he just basically still goes into reading this.
Which is the symbol of God or the Godhood. Ashur with the sun, the wings of the Holy Spirit, and the Father in the bosom of the Father. So it's Ashur. It's the symbol of...
See? There? There's a better picture. There's a man in the middle. Right? He's got a crown of righteousness over here. You go to Google images, you'd find that. Okay? Probably put in the Mesopotamian triune, and it'll probably show you that. Okay? And you'll see he's got a crown on his head. Crown of righteousness, that's the Christ. These are supposedly the wings of the Holy Spirit, but they're actually flames. That's why it's called Elohim, Elohwem. These are flames. Okay? And that circle there, connected, that complete circle, is the love of the God and the Father complete. That's why it's called triune. So it's very, very different to your Christian understanding, your Trinity concept, and your understanding of it, right? Yours is a more modern. It's like a Tertullian, Roman guy, philosopher, whatever he was, church father. Okay, that's his understanding, his translation of it. He hasn't got this, which is way, way, way older. Okay, very, very old. This man here, Victor Alexander, has translated from the 3,000-year-older Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets. He's gone around the world, looked at all the artifacts, those winged bull lions and all that sort of stuff, and he's found, because Jonah went to Nineveh and preached to them, and they all converted, and they wrote it down in their language, cuneiform or that type of Aramaic, and he found underneath that cuneiform they had these Aramaic inserts, right? So he translated both of those, and he speaks many dialects of Aramaic. There's a lot of people out there say, oh, he's not saying it right. I went to high school and I went to a seminar, and I went to a Bible college or a university and I learned it. You learnt the modern Syriac. Okay? He's not speaking it. He's like probably taking it from the original ancient. Ktav Ashurit, Lshana, Ateeqa, Supprayah, etc., etc. Very, very different. And he has like 20 or so years experience compared to our experience, right? 2 years of university trying to learn a modern language doesn't mean you're a native-born Aramaic speaking expert, right? Okay, so we continue a bit more.
The Son, which is Isham Shicha, Jesus the Messiah, prophesied thousands of years before the scriptures were written. So I use this symbol because this is not a pagan god, as some people seem to think. And I even saw a program on television that said that, something about Anunnaki coming from outer space and all this sort of thing. These programs I saw on the History Channel talk about aliens coming to Earth and all these symbols of the Trinity, of Allah, God, and all this sort of the creation, everything is explained in terms of aliens conducting genetic splicing and creating the human race, etc., etc.
It would be according to Sitchins, Zacharias Sitchins, Mauro Baglino, and people like that. Probably even Arthur C. Clarke.
No, this is pictographic language. This is not paganism. So, if the translation of the scriptures was merely taking an electronic file of one of the Bible translations and simply substituting certain words here and there and correcting some mistakes in grammar or in the word meanings or something like that, I would have finished the whole Bible by now. I would have published the whole scriptures. But my purpose is not just to make money. And so I have translated everything from scratch. And this is now beginning in the book of Genesis. So I'm going to read from my own translation, book of Genesis.
And that's what he does. Okay, I'm going to end this video here. You can go on YouTube and watch that. It's called the Aramaic Scriptures. Put in Aramaic Scriptures in your URL, and it'll come up, because he didn't correct it, didn't title it properly, Adam and Eve. You can go listen to that. You can listen to the whole video. It's only about 30 minutes long, but it's really interesting. Okay, we hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, then give us a like. Add your comments below the video, but don't forget to subscribe to us. Watch our other videos, and then go share this video and those with all your family, friends, and others. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, our latest video created and uploaded. You are much appreciated.